Welcome to the WRC podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and you're in the right place. Here at the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast, what you can expect is to learn, shift your thinking, and gain personal and professional growth. And if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. The conversation starts now. Welcome, everybody, to the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast. Today, I have an extraordinary person to introduce in just a minute, and I'm so excited to have him here. When he reached out to me, I was so delighted to have him on, and I can't wait for him to share his pearls of wisdom with each and every one of you. His name is Navnit Kambani, and his life story is a testament to the power of continuous learning and the pursuit of a balanced existence. Navnit's journey is marked with a deep commitment to personal growth and holistic living. Despite initially pursuing degrees in engineering and finance, Navnit's true passion lies in teaching, mentoring, and coaching. His career path took him from leadership roles at a young age to becoming a revered educator in prestigious management institutes. Through his work, he's not only impart knowledge, but also fosters personal development and growth for his students. Struggling to find balance between his professional ambitions and personal life, he embarked on a journey of self-discovery. Through introspection and reflection, he realized the importance of living a proper life, a life where passion and purpose intersect harmoniously. So please join me so enthusiastically to welcome Navnit Kambani to the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast. Navnit, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Katrina, for inviting me, accepting my invite, and giving me an opportunity to be on your podcast.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background, your upbringing? It is really unique. And if you don't know, a lot of my audience are counselors or people in the education industry, and your background's a little bit unique. So I'm quite excited to share it.
Yes, see, I have been a small town boy. I did my schooling from a very small town in the western state of Maharashtra in India, and then went on to do my engineering and MBA from a small place called Pune. And from there, I moved on into banking and financial services. And as we speak, I have completed 31 years in the industry. But at a very young age, I started mentoring and teaching in the management institutes in India, specifically in Delhi. And for 9 good years before I moved to Middle East, I was teaching financial management, finance, banking to students in management institutes who were doing their bachelor's of business administration and masters of business administration. And I moved to Bahrain in 2005. And since then, I have been in the industry. I was heading Citibank in the Middle East for their retail banking, looking after UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt businesses. And now, as we speak, I am an independent advisor. I'm an Amazon bestseller author. My debut book won the Golden Book Award 2024.
Wow, that's amazing. We're going to talk a little bit more about it. I can't wait to share more. So with all of that being said, can you tell us a little bit about that career change that you kind of briefly spoke about? You know, you were in the status quo career of, having leadership roles in banks, multinational banks, to going into more of like a wellness, academic, personal development route. As you said, you do independent guidance. So could you share a little bit more about that change and that transition?
See, if you look at the recent statistics that have been coming out from the corporate sector, the corporate sector is going through evolution, which is a growth evolution. But along with this evolution, there's a lot of struggle where the corporate executives, not just the top level, but the junior level as well, are struggling to balance their lives between their professional and personal life. And while things are going good, you don't realize that your identity has changed completely. Your identity becomes professional. I did a little survey, and when I started asking people a simple question, tell me something about yourself, and the answer used to come that I am a banker, I'm a teacher, I'm a salesperson. And no one talked about themselves. They only talked about their profession. And that is something which happened with me. And when I asked myself that, Navneet, who are you? I had no answer. The first answer that came to my mind was, I'm a banker. Because between the two wheels of life that I call pro and per, the cartwheel, pro and per, your professional and personal life, if you will not balance your professional and personal life, you are bound to struggle. And this is what is happening with the corporate executives. Khalij Time ran a survey where 56% people wanted to leave their jobs. Why is it so? We have wellness issues with our CXOs. Why is that the case? There's a mental imbalance between professionals. They're struggling to meet the end. So that's where my journey started, where I moved out of a 9 to 5 job and went into self-realization during COVID, and came up with this awareness program between pro and per, and I called myself a pro per guide, which is a proper guide, and I started writing a blog called Your Proper Guide.
I love that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Proper Guide? What is this promoting? How can others benefit from this? Because if you know anything about my podcast and my listeners, I talk so heavily about this work life balance. You really need to nurture it because life is short. And if you don't take care of yourself first, how in the world can you possibly lead a team, guide others, help your family, help yourself, let alone? So please tell us more about the Proper Guide.
See, we are so engulfed in our professional world that we forget that we have a very strong personal life. We are more us first than what we are professionally into. And while I was going through my own self realization journey, which I have written my book on, where I have talked about my own, self realization, I asked few questions to myself, and I always tell my listeners on various podcasts that, have you ever asked these questions to yourself and got real answers? Like a very simple question: are you really happy? What is the definition of happy in your mind? Being professionally successful makes you happy? Maybe or may not be. Do you really have a purpose in life? Do you really have a goal which you are seeking? Or your goals are only linked to your corporate life? Do you love your self image? Are you mindful? Are you really growing in corporate sector? Are you really growing, or just climbing up the ladder means you're growing? Are you personally growing? You may be growing professionally, but are you personally growing? Are you developing? So some of these questions are very important when you are there trying to balance your professional and personal life. Unfortunately, in last 3 years, the amount of research and surveys that I have done on the mental strength of our corporate executives, I'm very sorry to say that they don't have real answers to these very simple questions. They're just trying to pull their cartwheel, which is absolutely imbalanced. The cartwheel has got two wheels, your professional wheel and your personal wheel. If any of this wheel is imbalanced, it's very difficult for you to pull or push your cartwheel. And that is important. You need to have a balanced life in order to be successful. Successful, not professionally successful, but properly successful, or I would say properly successful in both your professional and personal life.
Wow, that's so beautifully said. I love how you turn that word successful into successful. Like, are we full within ourselves outside of work? That is so beautifully put. Thank you for breaking that down and giving us that visual of the cart and all the wheels being equal parts. And it's not just our professional success that creates identity for us. I think that that's what we get so wrapped up in, is what others are thinking about us, our family, our friends, and how successful we are in our careers. But are we successful in our life? Nobody ever really asked that question. And I think you
There you
did,
go.
and I think you broke it down so beautifully. So, how can people benefit from your work, your writing? I know you have written a book. Can you tell us a little bit about Unmask the Real You?
Yes, unmasking the real you. See, when in, I'm sure we all wear multiple masks on our face. When we are parents, we wear a different mask. When we are in schools, colleges, we wear different masks. In our professional world, we wear multiple masks. You know that, multiple tasking that we talk about? When we are doing multiple tasking, believe me, we are wearing multiple masks. What happens over a period of time, there's a layer of marks that come on top of us, and we really forget our own identity. This happened with me. This happened with me when I stepped out of my job in 2018. I lost my identity because my identity was my job as a banker. Now, the moment you step out of the job with a failed entrepreneurial venture, you are doomed. Like, you don't have an identity. And that's where, when I did my own self introspection, I realized what I was missing. And that's where I decided to write something. It all started with a blog. I started writing my blog, Your Proper Guide. And then I compiled all my writings into a book, which is called Unmasking the Real You, the journey from self realization to action. Now, it is very important. You can self realize yourself, but if you don't act upon it, it is useless. So what I always say that do a dispassionate introspection about yourself, ask these questions to you, get truthful to yourself and get the answers, and then peel off these masks, and then you realize you're such a beautiful, you are a powerhouse. You are a powerhouse. And when I say powerhouse, POWER, P stands for you will have a purpose of life. PO stands for you will organize your mind, body, and soul well. W stands for you will have a strong willpower. E stands for evenness of temperament. You will be calm. You will not be restlessness. And R stands for reason. You will be able to reason out everything using your discriminative wisdom or intelligence. So you'll become a powerhouse. So that's what I've written in my book. And that's where my book, somebody says it's a self help book. No, it's not a self help book. That book is something which is my journey. And if you can learn something from my journey, you know, that's the purpose of my life today. That if people can help themselves using my example.
That is so beautiful. I love the breakdown of the word power and how it can empower elements of who we are. Now, I can already hear people asking as they're listening to this episode, how do I make time to do this? What's the simplest way for me to unmask the real me? What advice would you give them?
First and foremost, you need to, calm yourself down. We are very restless human beings. We are always restless. And I can tell you, you and me are both shaking little bit because of style, because we are restless. We, when there is calmness, we will sit straight, we will talk very calmly. And you can observe that. People today are very restless. First thing is calm yourself down. Just quieten yourself. When you quieten yourself, that's where you can talk to yourself. The first step is start talking to yourself. It is not inside out that you should look for. It is actually what we do is we look outside in. We are more influenced by people outside than inside out. The moment you start looking inside yourself, you will realize you will have the answers to your questions. And ask yourself when I was working in a bank, we were salesmen. We used to be trained how to sell. In order to sell, we were told that we should ask as many questions as you can to get to know your customer well so that then you can propose. So here, that you are your own customer. Ask yourself as many questions to unmask yourself. And with every step that you will take, you will get an answer. My first chapter of the book is called Awareness, Thought, and Action. Be aware of yourself. The moment you will be aware of yourself, your thinking will change. And the moment your thinking will change, your actions will change.
That is so beautiful. I love that piece of advice because personally, I implement that. I've taken this idea of how we talk to ourselves and how I can turn that around and leverage it to create action. So that is really powerful what you said. And I thank you so much for saying that and sharing that message and it being part of your proper guide and the book. Is there anything else that you feel, because I know I didn't put this in the questions, is there anything else that you feel is super important that people need to know, um, that they are holding themselves back possibly from getting to know themselves? Is there any final piece of advice you could give my listeners?
The third chapter of my book is about goals. I would request your readers to buy my book and read that chapter, because the goals that we set for ourselves are not the real goals. We need to set real goals, and that will be my advice. I'll quickly tell, in short, in summary, I can tell you there are three kinds of goals in our lives. First type of goals is the goals that we know we can achieve. These are the goals that we set for ourselves because we know we'll achieve them. The second set of goals are the goals we know if we try, we will achieve. So if we are little pushed, we go to the second set of the goal because we know if we will try, we will achieve. But no one sets the real goals, which are your dreams. So dream well, dream big, and set big goals. And that's where if you will set big goals, you will work towards achieving those goals. And this is my advice to all your listeners here, that in order to manage your pro and per life, set big goals for yourself and have a purpose, a bigger purpose of life, not just the material desires that you have, which are very short term, which once you achieve, you get bored. You buy one car, in 2 years, you will be bored. You buy one phone, in 3 years, Apple will give you another thing, you will get bored. If that is the purpose of your life, then I think you need to really think about what is your purpose.
That was so beautifully said. Everything you said, I've been like, yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, Navnit, for sharing all of this beautiful things to think about, these self-reflective questions. The thoughtfulness that you brought to today's conversation was absolutely insightful for me personally as well. So I really appreciate your time today. And if people would like to get in touch with you or get a copy of your book or see your blog, how can they get in touch with you?
www.yourproperguide.com is my website. I have Insta handles with the same Your Proper Guide. I am on Facebook with Your Proper Guide. I'm on LinkedIn on Your Proper Guide. My book, Unmasking the Real You, is available on Amazon AE. You can buy that book from there. And you can reach out to me on my email ID, navneet@yourproperguide.com.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. And if anybody is interested in getting in touch with him or seeing any of his work, I will leave all of those details down below in the show notes. So no worry about that. And you know that if you want to get in touch with him, I'll leave his email as well. So thank you, Navnit, for your time today. It was such a delight. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I will catch you guys all on the very next episode.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Did you love the episode? I hope you're feeling inspired and no longer feeling alone out there, and you're ready to evolve and become a better person. Make sure that you share this podcast or take a screenshot and post it on your social media. That's how you help spread this podcast organically, and people can find it much easier when you share, or share it with a loved one. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and make it your mission to be a blessing in someone else's life today.